Okay, so one of the keyways got sheared, probably from hitting a stump. So there's the original one that's still good. And I saw a piece on the bandsaw, a little piece of mild steel, and we're going to make, it's some weird metric size. I was hoping it was a standard size. I got lots of keyway, but nothing that size. So we're going to clamp this in the milling machine and just make our own. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'm down to this is the final cut. I have to cut a little shorter, but it's pretty small. Just that parallel right there is just the right height. So. There they are. The original and a new one. It took about 15 minutes to make that. I'm finding all these bearings are dried out, so I've pulled the blades off, and these things here were originally made out of aluminum. So oh geez, it's got to be 15 years ago. More than that, 20 years ago, I made these out of steel with a friend of mine, and we used a file, and we cut the keyway with a file, and they don't break. So, and I'm using a slide hammer to knock these dust covers off, so that protects your bearing from string and wire and anything that could go in there to cut that seal. And I'm using a grease gun with a this is a trick of mine. I did this last year. I did this with both the little hypodermic needle. So we're just slipping it in there between the rubber and the inner race, and we're pumping some grease in there. So there, I pumped as much grease as I could in there with that little needle. The little pulley was easy to get off, and this one here, there could be two bearings in there, and I couldn't get it off. I might try again tomorrow night. The top one's greased and it seems to be spinning pretty good. It was seized. This is the one that kind of motivated me to do them all. And this double, you got your drive pulley here. This is coming off the PTO on the tractor. And then there's the underneath here. That's the little shiv that runs these outboard, two pulleys. So belt goes around. Well, there's the pattern. So I'm having trouble getting these two off. I don't know if there's two there or there's one. I mean, if it's one piece welded together. You know, don't tell me there's no such thing as sealed bearings and you never have to grease them. Eventually, if you own that tractor, whatever it is, tool, long enough, you're going to have to get in there and grease them. So, or change the bearings. So I'm not a believer. I'd rather have greasable bearings. Even though it's a pain to do, they'll last a lot longer than these sealed bearings will. Okay. Okay, yet another day has gone by. Well, last night I made a key for this blade right here because it was sheared right off. And this bolt would not go in. I don't know what was going on with it, but it didn't look stripped or anything. So I ran a tap. That's an M10. M10 1.5 threads per millimeter, I think it is. So anyway, 1.5. Just a cheap set of taps that I bought. And it still wouldn't go in, so I went and got this. I think these are thread chasers. These are not meant to be cut in threads, but if I ever have to, I will use them for that. It's finally turning in there fairly nicely. And it's the only one that was doing that. The other two seemed fine. This one here, I put it on last night. This one over here, no problems. You can hear that bearing. It's making a little bit of noise. This one over here is really quiet and smooth. This is the way they're Yeah, that's the way they should sound. And I'm going to mount it on here. That's the last of the 3 blades. One right. Yep. Just going to find my dead blow.
Oh, Jesus. Broke.
Okay, so I went and got my extractor drill. And I drilled into that, this little tip right here. It's like a reverse drill bit with a some thread on the end, tapered thread. Came right out. I'm a little paranoid about the other two, so I think what I'm going to do is just extract. I'll just pull these bolts right out, and I'll buy 3 brand new ones. And I looked it over here. You know, you can kind of see, if you look at that, the biggest thing I do battle with is metal fatigue. And the part on the right is kind of dull, it's kind of almost shiny over here. Yeah, if you got the sun, the daylight from outside reflects off it a little bit. So that was broken halfway through, just about halfway through. And the 2 pieces have been working against each other, and they kind of shiny. They make them they polish up a little bit. So that bolt was half broken already. So you know, here's your chance to just change them all. Okay, it's the next day, and I went to the fastener place. I got these lock washers, flat washers, bolts. I got 3 new bolts. So we're gonna set them up like this: lock washer, flat, and then it's supposed to be the right thread. Seems to be going in okay. I'm hoping they're not too long. Those 3, I got 3 of them. I don't want to take a chance on these other ones. If that broke that easily, the one in here, these 2 on each side are probably not far behind. So let's do that. And I got a couple of these little black plastic. I could have made some knurled nuts, but just take me too much time. So for $3, I get these. That's going to hold the black cover on the top. Here's the axle for the anti-scalp wheels. I mean, look at the wear on this. Wore right through to the threads there. And in the middle here, we've got it's bent on top of all that. So we had a rainy day about a month ago, and I made a new one on the little Atlas lathe. Okay, so here's a piece of 5/8. It's hot rolled. It's in the lathe. It's sticking out quite a bit, but it's kind of flopping around a little. As long as I don't run it too fast, it should be fine. So we're going to drill a hole in there. Okay, one done. One more to do. It's 39 and as close as I can get to 9/16. Love it. We're dead on. It's just a repeat of what I just did. Sweet. Okay, there it is, dry fitted with the new bolts on. We're gonna sand the whole thing down really good. It's rust everywhere. And we'll give it a coat of paint. And I mean, when you're gonna see this all finished, it's gonna look like a really, I don't know about new, it's gonna look, yeah, it'll look pretty good. Well, here we go. We're slowly getting there. I got everything put together. All the bolts are tightened. The lift mechanism's back on it. Wheels are reinstalled. I put some spacers in there. I found some PVC. I think this is ABS. They were so loose that these cone plastic things were falling out of the groove in there. So from wear, you know, there's a lot of wear. Just painted the cover, and this fluffy stuff is floating around everywhere. So I'm gonna wait till the paint dries and try and pull it off. Not too bad, eh? And it kind of reminds me of a certain brand of power tool. Alright, I just finished making this new cable for the steering on the little Canadiana tractor, which this wouldn't have been included in part 2, but the steering cable broke before I had a chance to edit the video. So I took a piece of 5/16, cross drilled, soldered it on the middle here. That's what locks it on the steering spool. And then the 2 end pieces, I did this all on the Atlas lathe. I drilled a little hole into there, about an inch deep, soldered that in, took a piece of 1/2 inch, drilled in again about an inch, soldered, threaded this end for a 5/16 bolt. The new steering cable is installed. I made it a little bit too long, but I'd rather that than it was too short. So it comes around this little plastic pulley here, through this groove, up through here, another little plastic pulley, then this one here to turn it towards the steering, and you can see this one's spaced about 1.25 inches off the floor here. Then you got your steering spool here where the little knob, that thing in the middle, is soldered on. Then this pulley here, which is right up tight to the floor, so the cable comes around the top side of the spool here and the bottom side because this one's spaced off. Back around this pulley here, and then through this groove underneath on the bottom side, around, and there's the piece on the other end with the bolt that I made. So, you know, while I had it apart, I took this bolt out here. This pulley slipped right off. There was a little bit of, and there was 2 sealed bearings. I took my needle, the greaser, and I went in there and greased it. Hey, one last finishing touch. I've got to finally put this cover on. So there it is, back in business, ready to cut grass. Put a lot of time into it. It was fun. It was actually fun to make the axle for the front wheels here with the Atlas lathe. I made the little keyway with the milling machine and the new cable. That was fun to do. Didn't have too much time, but it should be good to go for a long time now. I greased every possible bearing I could. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for, if you give me a thumbs up, that would be great. Or share. And I'm enjoying YouTube.